They thought I was just a quiet engineer they could push around. My boss, Richard, stole my credit for years and then promoted his incompetent nephew over me. He thought he'd won, but he didn't know I'd uncovered his multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. Watch how I turned his biggest presentation into his ultimate downfall. As I told him when I walked out, that's the price you pay. Before we get into this epic story of corporate revenge, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us bring more of these satisfying stories to you every day. For 5 grueling years, Alex had been the silent engine of Viridian Dynamics, a tech firm that prided itself on innovation, but thrived on the sweat of its unsung heroes. She was a brilliant software engineer, a meticulous project manager, and often a miracle worker, capable of untangling the most complex code and steering faltering projects back on track. Her desk, perpetually littered with coffee cups and dog-eared technical manuals, was a testament to her unwavering dedication. She arrived before the sun kissed the city skyline, and often left long after the moon had claimed its dominion, fueled by a quiet ambition and the unwavering belief that her hard work would eventually be recognized. Her goal was clear: the senior project manager position. It was a role she had been groomed for, a promotion she had earned countless times over in all but title. She had meticulously built the department's most successful platforms, streamlined workflows, and even mentored junior developers who now outranked her in certain circles. The whispers in the hallways, the knowing glances from colleagues, and even the occasional direct hint from the HR department all pointed to her as the natural successor. She wasn't just qualified, she was indispensable. Then there was Richard. Richard Sterling, Alex's direct superior, was everything Alex was not. Richard was a master of appearances, a charismatic chameleon who could charm the CEO into believing he personally coded the entire internet. His office, unlike Alex's organized chaos, was pristine, adorned with framed golf trophies and photos of him shaking hands with various industry titans. Richard's workdays typically involved extended lunches, strategic networking events, and an uncanny ability to materialize just as a project reached its triumphant conclusion, ready to bask in the reflected glory. He was a credit stealer, a master manipulator, and the bane of Alex's professional existence. The dynamic between them was a thinly veiled secret within the department. Alex did the heavy lifting, the late-night debugging, the crisis management. Richard, in turn, presented Alex's achievements as his own, weaving elaborate narratives of his own strategic genius and leadership. Alex, ever the professional, would grit her teeth, swallow her pride, and continue to deliver, hoping that sheer undeniable results would eventually speak for themselves. She was wrong. In the corporate jungle of Viridian Dynamics, it wasn't just about what you did, but who you knew, and more importantly, who took the credit. The turning point, the moment when Alex's quiet ambition began to curdle into resentment, arrived with Project Alpha. It was a monumental undertaking, a complete overhaul of Viridian Dynamics' legacy client management system. Alex had poured 6 months of her life into it, meticulously designing the architecture, writing thousands of lines of code, and leading a small, dedicated team through countless late nights. She'd even foregone her annual leave, driven by the promise, subtly hinted at by Richard, that a successful Project Alpha would be her ticket to the senior project manager role. The launch was flawless. The new system was faster, more intuitive, and significantly more stable than its predecessor. Client feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and the internal metrics soared. It was, by all accounts, a resounding success, a testament to Alex's technical prowess and leadership. Then came the quarterly board meeting. Alex, along with her team, had prepared a detailed technical presentation, ready to showcase their achievement. But Richard, with a dismissive wave of his hand, informed them that their presence wouldn't be necessary. "I'll handle the presentation, Alex," he'd said, a patronizing smile playing on his lips. "You and your team have done excellent work, but the board needs to hear the strategic overview from management. Leave the technical jargon to me." Alex watched, fuming, as Richard strode into the boardroom, a thick binder filled with Alex's meticulously prepared slides tucked under his arm. An hour later, Richard emerged, beaming, accepting congratulations from the CEO and several board members. He'd presented Project Alpha as his brainchild, a strategic initiative he had personally overseen from conception to execution. Alex's name was never mentioned. Her team's efforts were reduced to a footnote, a mere execution of Richard's grand design. Later that day, Alex, her patience worn thin, confronted Richard in his office. "Richard, with all due respect, Project Alpha was my team's work." "My work? You didn't even mention us in the presentation." Her voice was low, controlled, but laced with a barely suppressed anger. Richard leaned back in his plush leather chair, a smirk spreading across his face. "Alex, Alex, Alex," he sighed, shaking his head. "Such naivety. Do you really think the board cares about who wrote the code? They care about results and they care about leadership. I provided the leadership. You provided the labor. That's how the corporate world works, my girl." He then leaned forward, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "And let me remind you, Alex, there are 100 other engineers out there who would kill for your job. Don't make yourself expendable. Learn your place." The threat was clear, the message chilling. Alex was just a cog in Richard's machine, easily replaced if she dared to challenge the narrative. She left Richard's office, the bitter taste of injustice lingering in her mouth, the quiet ambition she once held now tainted with a growing seed of resentment. The belief that hard work alone would lead to recognition had been shattered. She realized then that she wasn't just fighting for a promotion. She was fighting for her professional dignity, and perhaps, for a way to make Richard pay for his endless deceit. The humiliation of Project Alpha festered within Alex, a slow-burning fire that threatened to consume her passion for her work. She continued to perform her duties with her usual meticulousness, but the joy had been replaced by a grim determination. She watched Richard with a new, cynical eye, observing the subtle ways her boss manipulated situations, deflected blame, and consistently elevated himself at the expense of others. Alex began to notice patterns. Discrepancies that had previously seemed innocuous now screamed of deceit. Then came the announcement that sent ripples of excitement and anxiety through Viridian Dynamics. The company had secured a meeting with Global Tech, a multinational conglomerate, for a contract that could redefine Viridian's market position. This wasn't just a big deal, it was the deal. The CEO himself stressed the importance of this opportunity, emphasizing that all hands were on deck to ensure its success. Richard, predictably, assigned the entire technical development and implementation strategy for the Global Tech pitch to Alex. The deadline was brutal, almost impossible, demanding round-the-clock work for weeks. "Alex," Richard had said, his voice oozing with false sincerity, "this is your moment. Nail this, and that senior project manager title is yours. I'll personally vouch for you to the board." Alex knew it was a lie, another empty promise designed to extract maximum effort with minimum reward. But this time, the lie didn't sting as much as it ignited something else, a cold, calculated resolve. As Alex delved into the Global Tech project, She found herself immersed in the company's financial records, project budgets, and vendor contracts. She needed to ensure every detail was perfect for the pitch. It was during this deep dive that she stumbled upon something far more sinister than credit stealing. Hidden within complex spreadsheets and obscured by layers of legitimate-looking transactions, Alex uncovered a systematic pattern of embezzlement. Richard wasn't just taking credit, he was taking money. Millions of dollars, funneled through shell companies and inflated vendor invoices, all linked back to projects Alex had spearheaded. The global tech project itself was riddled with these fraudulent entries, cleverly disguised as legitimate expenses. The realization hit Alex like a physical blow. Richard wasn't just a petty tyrant, he was a criminal. This wasn't just about a stolen promotion anymore. It was about corporate fraud, a betrayal of the entire company, its employees, and its shareholders. The stakes had just been raised exponentially. Alex knew she couldn't just walk away. She had to act, not just for herself, but for justice. The quiet ambition was now a roaring inferno, fueled by a righteous anger. She would finish the global tech project, make it flawless, but this time, it wouldn't be for Richard's glory. It would be for Richard's downfall. And Alex, the unsung heroine, would orchestrate every single detail. The discovery of Richard's embezzlement transformed Alex's anger into a cold, precise determination. This was no longer a personal vendetta. It was a mission to expose a criminal and protect the company she had dedicated 5 years of her life to. She knew she couldn't just go to HR or the CEO with her findings. Richard was too well connected, too skilled at twisting narratives. Alex needed irrefutable proof, a plan so meticulously executed that Richard would have no escape. She continued to work on the global tech project with an almost obsessive focus, ensuring every line of code, every strategic document, every presentation slide was perfect. But beneath the surface of her diligent work, a parallel operation was underway. Alex, with her deep understanding of Viridian Dynamics' intricate IT infrastructure, began to systematically gather evidence. She accessed secure financial logs, cross-referenced vendor invoices with actual project expenditures, and meticulously documented every suspicious transaction. She created encrypted backups of all her findings, storing them in multiple secure locations outside the company network. Her most ingenious move was the implementation of a dead man's switch within the global tech project deliverables. Knowing that Richard would attempt to present the project as his own, Alex designed the final, critical components of the presentation to be inaccessible without a specific decryption key. This key, of course, would only be in Alex's possession. She also embedded a subtle, undetectable watermark within the core code, a digital signature that would unequivocally prove her authorship, should the need arise. She spent countless nights perfecting her exit strategy. She wasn't just going to quit. She was going to make a statement. She drafted a comprehensive report detailing Richard's fraudulent activities, complete with timestamps, transaction IDs, and clear explanations of the financial discrepancies. This report, along with the decryption key for the global tech presentation, was scheduled to be anonymously emailed to the CEO at a precise moment, the exact time Richard was set to begin his presentation to global tech. Alex also began discreetly networking, not for a new job, but for intelligence. She spoke with former employees who had left under mysterious circumstances, subtly probing for any patterns of Richard's behavior. She found a common thread. Richard's victims were always the most talented, the ones whose work he could most easily appropriate. This reinforced Alex's resolve. She wasn't just avenging herself. She was avenging all those who had been wronged by Richard Sterling. The game was set, the pieces were in place, and Alex, the quiet engineer, was ready to play her final, devastating move. The air in Viridian Dynamics was thick with anticipation. The day of the global tech presentation had arrived, a day that would either elevate the company to new heights or send it spiraling into uncertainty. For Richard, it was another opportunity to bask in undeserved glory. For Alex, it was the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning, the moment her carefully constructed trap would spring. Richard, resplendent in a tailored suit, exuded an air of confident arrogance. He strode through the office, nodding curtly at subordinates, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. He had the final presentation files, meticulously prepared by Alex, loaded onto his company laptop. He believed he held all the cards, oblivious to the digital time bomb ticking within his grasp. Alex, on the other hand, maintained her usual quiet demeanor. She arrived at the office early, ensuring all her final preparations were complete. She double-checked the anonymous email, confirming the precise timing of its dispatch to the CEO. She made sure the dead man switch was armed and ready. Her heart pounded with a mixture of nerves and exhilaration, a feeling she hadn't experienced since her early days of coding a particularly challenging algorithm. This was her magnum opus, her ultimate code. The global tech executives, along with Viridian Dynamics CEO, Mr. Harrison, and several board members, gathered in the state-of-the-art boardroom. The atmosphere was charged with expectation. Richard entered, radiating false confidence, and took his place at the head of the polished mahogany table. He connected his laptop to the large display screen, ready to begin his performance. Just as Richard was about to click on the presentation file, Alex, who had been observing from a discreet distance, executed her final, critical maneuver. With a few swift keystrokes on her personal device, she triggered the dead man switch. The accessible versions of the global tech presentation files on Richard's laptop, and indeed on the company's shared drive, vanished. Only the encrypted, inaccessible versions remained, waiting for Alex's decryption key. Then, with a quiet resolve that belied the storm she had just unleashed, Alex stood up from her desk, gathered her few personal belongings, and walked out of the Viridian Dynamics building. She didn't look back. The automatic doors hissed shut behind her, sealing her past and opening the door to a future she had meticulously engineered. The game had begun, and Richard, unknowingly, was about to play his final, losing hand. Inside the gleaming boardroom, Richard's confident facade began to crack. He clicked on the presentation icon, but instead of the polished slides Alex had prepared, a cryptic error message flashed across the screen. File not found or corrupted. Please contact administrator. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. He tried again and again, each attempt met with the same infuriating message. The room, once buzzing with anticipation, fell silent, the executives' gazes turning from expectant to questioning. Is there a problem, Richard? Mr. Harrison, the CEO, asked, his voice laced with a hint of impatience. Richard, flustered, stammered. Just a minor technical glitch, Mr. Harrison. Alex must have. He trailed off, realizing he couldn't blame Alex without admitting Alex had done the work. He fumbled with his laptop, trying to access the shared drive, only to find the same files missing or encrypted there too. Panic began to set in. Richard's mind raced, desperately trying to recall any details of the presentation, any talking points. But he knew nothing beyond the superficial. He had relied entirely on Alex. He frantically pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed Alex's number. It rang once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. He tried again and again, each unanswered call amplifying his growing despair. Meanwhile, the global tech executives exchanged uneasy glances. Their time was valuable, and this unprofessional display was not instilling confidence. "Perhaps we should reschedule," one of them suggested, a polite but firm tone in her voice. Mr. Harrison's face darkened. This was a make-or-break deal, and Richard was single-handedly destroying it. Richard, now visibly shaking, made a desperate plea. "Please, just a few more minutes. There must be a backup somewhere." He tried to log into Alex's computer, but Alex had changed her password. He barked orders at a junior IT technician who had been called in, but the technician could only confirm that the files were indeed gone from all accessible locations. The presentation was a complete and utter disaster. Global Tech, seeing the chaos and incompetence, politely but firmly stated that they would be reconsidering their options. The multi-million-dollar contract, the future of Viridian Dynamics, was slipping through Richard's fingers, and he had no one to blame but himself. The room emptied, leaving Richard alone, staring at the blank screen, his career crumbling around him. As Richard sat in the deserted boardroom, the silence amplifying his despair, a different scene was unfolding in Mr. Harrison's office. The CEO, fuming from the global tech debacle, was reviewing his emails, searching for answers, for anything that could explain the catastrophic failure. Then, an anonymous email landed in his inbox. The subject line was simple: regarding Project Global Tech and Richard Sterling. Curiosity piqued, Mr. Harrison opened the email. It contained two attachments. The first was a single, encrypted file labeled globaltech_presentation_final.zip. The second was a detailed, meticulously organized report titled Richard Sterling, Fraudulent Activities and Misappropriation of Company Assets.pdf. Mr. Harrison's eyes widened as he opened the PDF. Page after page, it laid bare Richard's systematic embezzlement, inflated invoices, shell company transactions, unauthorized expense claims, all meticulously documented with dates, amounts, and supporting evidence. The report even included screenshots of internal communications where Richard had explicitly taken credit for Alex's work, complete with timestamps and project IDs. It was damning, irrefutable proof of years of deceit. Then he noticed a small, almost imperceptible detail at the bottom of the report: a digital watermark, a unique identifier that pointed directly to Alex's internal employee ID. It was a subtle signature, a final, undeniable claim of authorship. The realization hit Mr. Harrison with the force of a physical blow. Alex, his quiet, unassuming engineer, had not only done all the work, but had also uncovered Richard's entire criminal enterprise. The email also contained the decryption key for the Global Tech presentation. With trembling hands, Mr. Harrison downloaded the encrypted file and applied the key. The presentation, flawless and comprehensive, appeared on his screen. It was exactly what Global Tech had needed, exactly what Richard had failed to deliver. The contrast between Alex's meticulous preparation and Richard's utter incompetence was stark, humiliating. Mr. Harrison immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Richard had not only jeopardized the company's most important contract, but had also been systematically defrauding Viridian Dynamics for years. And Alex, the true genius behind their success, had been systematically sidelined and exploited. The CEO felt a wave of profound regret and anger. He had been blind, swayed by Richard's charisma, and had allowed a truly valuable employee to be mistreated. He knew what he had to do. Justice, it seemed, had a way of finding its own path, even in the cutthroat world of corporate America. The fallout from the global tech debacle and Mr. Harrison's discovery was swift and brutal. Richard Sterling was not just fired. He was publicly disgraced. The evidence of his embezzlement, meticulously compiled by Alex, was handed over to the authorities. Within days, Richard was facing multiple charges of corporate fraud, his once pristine reputation shattered, his assets frozen, and his future a bleak landscape of legal battles and potential prison time. The golf trophies in his office, once symbols of his fabricated success, now seemed like cruel jokes. Mr. Harrison, humbled and enraged, immediately launched an internal investigation, uncovering more of Richard's victims and the systemic issues that had allowed his deceit to flourish. He knew the company had narrowly avoided a catastrophic loss, all thanks to Alex. His first priority was to bring Alex back. He called Alex, his voice filled with genuine contrition. "Alex, I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Richard has been fired, and he's facing legal action. We need you back. I'm offering you Richard's position, effective immediately, with a significant raise and a bonus for saving the company. Anything you want, Alex, it's yours." The desperation in his voice was palpable. Alex listened calmly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. The satisfaction was immense, a sweet vindication for years of unrecognized labor and stolen credit. She had achieved her goal. Richard was ruined, and the company was safe. But the old Alex, the one who craved validation from Viridian Dynamics, was gone. The experience had changed her, showing her the true nature of corporate loyalty and the power of self-reliance. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," Alex replied, her voice steady and confident. "I appreciate the offer truly, but I've already accepted a position elsewhere." She paused, letting the words sink in. "In fact, I'm starting my own consulting firm, specializing in secure data management and project recovery. I believe Viridian Dynamics might find my services valuable in the future, under a different kind of contract, of course." She had already secured seed funding and a few initial clients, leveraging her reputation and the network she had quietly built. Mr. Harrison was stunned. He had expected Alex to return, to revel in her victory. But Alex had moved beyond mere revenge. She had built a new future for herself. The CEO could only offer his congratulations, a bitter pill to swallow knowing he had lost his most valuable asset. Alex hung up the phone, a sense of profound peace washing over her. She looked out at the city skyline, no longer just a cog in a corporate machine, but the architect of her own destiny. Richard Sterling was a cautionary tale, a reminder that true success isn't about stealing credit or manipulating others. It's about genuine talent, integrity, and knowing your worth. And sometimes, it takes a little bit of well-deserved revenge to finally claim it. The game was over and Alex had won. Not just the battle, but the entire war. And that's how Richard Sterling went from being the king of the office to a disgraced criminal facing years in prison. As for me, I'm finally my own boss, and business has never been better. It just goes to show, never underestimate the quiet person in the room. They might just be the one holding all the keys. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have exposed him publicly, or just walked away quietly? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your perspectives. If you enjoyed this story of corporate karma, Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more daily revenge stories. Also, check out the video on your screen right now for another mind-blowing story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.